Hello everyone, welcome back to the Frugal Filmmaker Q&A. That's the show where you ask me a filmmaking question and I try to answer it. Remember, if you'd like your question read on the show, to send me an email to thefrugalfilmmaker@gmail.com. That's your best chance you have of getting your question read on the show. Or you can leave a comment below, or you can send me a message on Twitter @FrugalFilmmaker. So last week was Trivia Tuesday, where I tested everyone's knowledge about the Frugal Filmmaker with a chance to win one of these, the Frugal Filmmaker Short Film Idea Deck. And that question was, of all the DIY camera items I've created, which one have I made the most videos about? Well, the answer was the Frugal cage. In fact, I've made so many videos about this item, I recently posted a playlist consisting of 15 videos all concerned with the Frugal cage in one way or another. And the one who gave me the correct answer first via email was James Heaney of Canada. So congratulations, James. Your deck is on its way. And remember, if you didn't win this month, you can try again next month, as there are no repeat winners. And next year, there will be a brand new prize. So look forward to that. Now, my last video was a Sony Vegas video about how to import a text file into your credit roll so you don't have to do all that manual typing inside of the form in the program. It's a much easier way to import a specifically formatted text file with all the information for your credits, whether it's a video project or a movie or whatever. Very, very easy. In fact, even if you're not a Sony Vegas user, I guarantee you there's some things in this video you might want to know if you are doing something similar. And our first question from email actually comes from that video asking about Sony Vegas, and it's from Skyfox, who says, a couple of questions about Sony Vegas. First, what export render settings would you recommend for YouTube videos? And second, when I'm importing a bunch of B-roll clips over the main video on the timeline, is there a quick trick for getting them to deposit in roughly the correct spots based on the file times? Well, I've done a lot of experimentation with various file formats and bit rates and export settings, all trying to get the very best quality video from YouTube out of my setup. And it seems like no matter what I try, I still go back to the free plugin for Sony Vegas called Video for YouTube. It's actually created by the same guys that made Vegasaur, if you're familiar with that. It's just a big plugin. It lets you do all kinds of things. But this plugin is free, and I usually just use the normal setting at the full resolution, which is HD. And I get pretty decent looking video. And it seems like whatever else I would try, I would never really get anything better than that I could see, with my eyes anyway. And so I've stuck with Video for YouTube. It's very easy. I don't have to finagle with any settings or bit rates or anything else. It just does what I want. If I want to up the bit rate, I can. Although it seems like most of the time, at least for shows like this where there's not a lot of movement, if I just stick to the normal setting, it works out just fine. Now, as far as how to put B-roll clips in the right place at the right time on your timeline, I think there's a little confusion about what B-roll is. Because B-roll, which is a TV term, by the way, not a movie term, usually refers to stuff that's shot out of sequence or just later or before, or it's file footage. For example, if I'm talking about working on my car, B-roll would be somebody working on their car. It might not even be me. It could be anybody. You see a lot of B-roll on the news all the time. That's where we probably use it the most. But if you're looking for specific shots that are supposed to go at specific times or look like they match up, it actually sounds like now you're talking more about multicam shooting or insert editing, where you're putting in shots that relate directly to what you're seeing on screen as far as matching action and things like that. So if you're doing something like that, what I would do is whatever your B camera is that you're shooting with, is to just make sure that your microphones are turned on the camera so you can get a scratch track on that camera, and then you can more easily sync up things that are happening on your A camera just by using the soundtrack. That would be what I would recommend. You can get a program like Pluralize if you want to try and match the tracks. Sometimes that works. I haven't had a whole lot of success with Pluralize, but programs like that can sync up audio will probably give you the best matching shots if that's what you're looking for. But if you just want B-roll, you can just put B-roll anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to match up specifically to what's happening on screen. It can just kind of indirectly show what's happening or what the person is talking about. That's what B-roll is. Insert editing, I think, or multicam shooting is more about what you're talking about. So hopefully this helps. Okay, Ray Rack is back with a question, and he asks, one of your suggestions on your webpage is to watch a lot of movies. What type of movies, and what should we be looking for? Certain directors, Sundance Film Festival winners, classics? Why are classics significant? Now, what Ray is referring to is if you go to my website, thefrugalfilmmaker.com, I have something in the sidebar called the Frugal Filmmaker Philosophy. And the first thing on there, the 10 items, the first thing is to watch a lot of movies. And this is just common sense. I mean, if you want to understand or learn about any art form, before you go into analysis and start picking things apart, you just need to watch those things. You need to look at those things, or read those things if you're interested in writing, or look at paintings, or watch ballet, or whatever. The same thing applies to filmmaking. If you want to be a filmmaker or you want to learn more about film, you got to watch a lot of movies. You got to see what others have done before you throughout history. Film hasn't been around as long as other art forms, of course, 100+ years. But movies from the beginning of the filmmaking era until now have done all kinds of interesting things, and you can learn more, I think, from watching the origins of certain techniques, such as montage, Russian montage, for example, to understand how it applies now or how it's used now, such as in music videos. And as far as what types of films I think people should watch, I think you should watch all kinds of films. I think you should watch classic films. I think you should watch contemporary films. I think you should watch foreign films. If you really want to get the full breadth of what goes on in the filmmaking world, you will watch all different kinds of things and not necessarily limit yourself to a specific spectrum. Be aware of these different movies. You might have to search them out, and if you don't know which ones to watch, Google the best foreign films of whatever country, or go on IMDb or do some homework, and you can find some really good movies. Of course, you're not going to like all of them. Nobody's going to like all movies. Nobody's going to appreciate all movies, but you might find ones you really, really like that you weren't aware of before. You just have to look to find them. Next up is Emery Sly, who says, do you consider making up a sound effects track in post beyond the capabilities of amateur filmmakers, or should they attempt it? Well, the answer to this is a resounding yes. You should definitely attempt recording sounds. In fact, Ben Burtt, who is a sound designer on Star Wars and has become one of the best sound designers in the history of cinema ever since then, decided not to use library sound effects on Star Wars, but to go out and create their own sound effects or find their own sound effects. And as a result, you've got all this iconic stuff that he created, not only from that movie, but every movie he's worked on since then. He's awesome, but I think he sets a fine example for all of us, whereas yes, you should go out and collect your own sounds. Don't use what already exists. Don't use libraries that other people are going to have access to. Create your own unique sound for your film by going out and searching for these things or creating these things. It's such an important aspect of filmmaking. I believe that sound is just as important in the film experience, big or small screen, as picture. I mean, it's really, really important, and the more effort you put into that side of the filmmaking process, the better your movie's going to be. And take Ben Burtt's example, go out and find some awesome stuff, because your film will be that much more awesome as a result. On to YouTube comments, we have one from Joshua Felty, who says, did you ever make a rig for your car or dash of a car? Well, yes, I did make a camera rig for a car. It was based on a suction cup mount that you would use to move big plates of glass, for example, just a handle with 2 suction cups. And I was then able to put the Frugal clamp on top of that handle and then use it as a camera mount. I found it was most successful, at least on the car I was using at the time, on the car window, because that was most stable, but other people have used it on car hoods and doors and things like that, and it seems to work okay. I also like it because it has a safety feature, namely a strap, a ratchet strap that goes through the car mount so that if the suction cups fail, your camera doesn't hit the ground. It's actually still secured to the car, so I think that's good. On my thesis film collection day, we did use a car mount. It wasn't that specific one. It was a more professional mount. We mounted on the hood and the door of the car to get those shots. I haven't really made a mount for the dash of a car, but you can use something like a sandbag or something to prop your camera on. Another thing I think I should point out too is also be careful when you're doing shots like this as far as inside of a car, because it seems like people want to see as much as they can inside of the car, and so they use a really wide angle lens, or they use a GoPro camera which has almost a fisheye lens, or does have a fisheye lens. So I used the 28mm lens when I was inside of a car, the same lens that I'm using now, and because it doesn't distort too much but still gives you a wider angle of view. So be careful when you're using those wide angle lenses or extreme wide angle lenses inside of a car, even if you just have a GoPro. It just, to me, those don't look good. It distorts everything. Unless you're going for a surreal look or you don't care, I guess it's okay. But remember, all the distortion you're getting is not a realistic viewpoint. It's always cracked me up about the whole selfie thing, because the most flattering focal length to shoot the human face is something like 85mm, a portrait style lens, but all smartphone cameras come with built-in wide angle lenses, the most unflattering focal length you could shoot the human face with, but everybody does it. So I think it's funny, because those pictures do not look like the people they're shooting. They look weird because of the distortion. Granted, the farther you hold it away, the better it looks, but still you have close-ups of people with those lenses and it just looks bad. And finally we have Bill B, who says, so if you only have 4 hours of daylight, is the gold reflector behind you really necessary to obscure the Arctic glare? Well, Bill, the reason I have the gold reflector here on the window is, if you may recall in the past, or maybe you weren't here when I mentioned this, is that when I was trying to figure out where to shoot in this laundry room / studio, I ended up with this angle because it seemed to be the best one, but I had an open window here, which means that in broad daylight there was too much light coming in. It was a super big hot spot, and at night it was so dark that it just became a mirror. So neither of those were really what I wanted, especially if I wanted to shoot a show like this in the same day, but maybe at different times, especially here in the Arctic where you might not have a lot of daylight. So I put this reflector here in the window just to make everything consistent. But there might actually be another reason I have this reflector here. Let me check. Well, that's all the questions we have this week. I'd like to thank everyone for writing in. Really good questions as usual. And remember, if you'd like to have your question read on the Frugal Filmmaker Q&A, to send me an email to thefrugalfilmmaker@gmail.com. That's your best chance you have of getting your question read on the show. Or you can comment below, or you can send me a message on Twitter @FrugalFilmmaker. Now, we should have another video coming up this week. I believe it's going to be the big DIY video that I've been wanting to share with everyone. And another Q&A on Monday. So until then, see ya.